So today, as I was speaking yesterday, I wanted to speak to you about worship. Yesterday we spoke about prayer. But there's something so deep about worship that I've seen that the enemy, if ever there's a hard job that he works hard on, he works on making sure you don't understand worship. Because if he can remove worship from you, he's got you. Why? Because worship is the most intimate moment that you'll ever have that will change your life. Today, I want to talk about that worship is private. It's very private, but the results are public. Because you labor in private and you go before the Lord and you bring your supplications, you work so hard, and then God rewards you in public. Because wars are always won by worshipers. If you know how to worship, you know what breakthroughs look like. But today I want to take this example, and as I was driving here, and an example just jumped up again on me when we go to Genesis chapter 12. Let's go to Genesis chapter 12. And let's go to verse 22. But before I read this, I wanted to bring this into context. We're talking about Jacob. Now, we've known what happened before. Jacob was known. You know, it's so interesting that we as people who get stuck on a title will never let it go. We like talking about your past, and we keep you stuck in the past. Whenever we say Jacob, somebody says, oh, that one who, the deceiver. That's what we come up with. When we say David, you say, oh, the one who murdered, you know, he's a murderer. And we always stay in the past. What God said is not what God is saying. Because there are things that God said in the past. But now you need to always refer to what God is saying in the present tense. So who was Jacob? Let me just quickly, as we sum up Jacob. He is a man with the greatest intent. He was very focused on one thing and one thing only. I want God. You know what? I always see that people who are called the names by people, they always have an intense side about them. Jacob was very intent, and he was so intelligent that even when he negotiated with his brother Esau, he looked at him, he said, I don't think you understand what you have. I want that. You know, sometimes we have got gifts and we take them for granted. And we don't think much about it. It's like, oh yeah, man, I have this gift. But then there's something so important about somebody who's looking very intently because they understand the gift in you. Sometimes we have got a gift and we don't understand it because we've allowed people to describe the gift according to how they see it. But sometimes we forget to ask God himself to say, what is this gift that I have? Because I want to understand what it is that I do. You know, the gifts that we have, if you do not take it seriously, then you're missing out on the aspect of worship that is so important. It doesn't mean that when I'm standing up here and preaching and you was got a gift of hospitality out there, I'm better than you. Because hospitality in itself can relieve somebody of many burdens. There's certain people, don't you know those type of people? When they walk through the door, when it just says, oh, my brother, it's so good to see you, you feel like a burden is just dropped. You feel like it was so good to see you. And you're walking in with like, what happened just now? Somebody has a gift of hospitality. And that hospitality has just disarmed all the demons that were trying to take that person's focus on where God is. And in one instant, just a greeting. If you understand what you're called to do, you'll know the power behind what you have. Because stop owning the gift thinking that it's yours. Let God work the gift that he has given in you. Let him work out what is put in you. So take whatever you do so seriously. There's no one in this place who is not significant in the eye of the Lord. Even if you are a cleaner in this place, you need to understand you clean as you swing as you clean. Because you're so proud of what you're doing, you're saying, because I'm not doing this just for myself, I'm doing this as per the fact that as the one who's called by the Lord, my work is called excellence. And you're not always looking for people to tell you, well done, because you know God already approves of you. When God already approves of you, there's no need to hear somebody else to tell you. When they tell you, you can say, I know. Why? Because you know what God has given you. And so even when people bring you, I've seen some people go. One friend of mine actually, he got employed, and he said, when I walked in, I looked at them and said, congratulations. He said, what do you mean? How can you congratulate us? We just employed you. Aren't you happy? He said, no, congratulations, because I don't think you understand who just walked in here. I said, okay. What does that mean? He said, no, I carry a power that's higher than yours, so I'm about to change this place. He said, I said that and I was very nervous. He said, I was shaking because I was like, what am I just saying now? But what he was saying was, I approve of the one who has approved of me. So I don't need any more validation more than knowing who's behind me. Because right now, when Jesus is accompanying you, you're different. I'll make this example. I remember my little brother. My brother is 10 years younger than me. One day he got into trouble. The usual, he goes out there and some big boy kind of like, he tries to fight a bigger boy than him. It doesn't go well. He comes home and he finds me sitting there and he's crying. This guy just hit me. Who? This one. So big brother, all the time, whenever somebody comes crying, big brother, you've got a soft spot. You need to prove and defend your family name, So I said, no, let's go. He said, no, I'll show you. Come. And so all of a sudden when he came in, he was crying. But when he was walking out, knowing that I'm walking behind him, now he was walking like this. Yeah. That's him. And I looked at him, I was like, can you show me someone else? Because that one is a little bit bigger than me. But the confidence he had was more like, I know who's behind me, so my brother can do anything. So he goes there. I had to look at that guy and say, are you sure you know what you just done right now? I needed to apologize. And I was praying, please apologize. And the guy just said, no, it was a mistake. I said, no, you better watch it next time, my brother. Things are not going to be the same. And I was so relieved. I said, come back, my boy. Let's go back home. He will never touch you again. And I'm looking at him, don't you ever. It was so bad. It was just good. It was good. So, at least that battle was won just like that. When you understand who's behind you, you wear confidence, not arrogance. People call confidence arrogance. But you know how? Because when God is in you, he activates things in you that you never knew you had. Nobody knows what they have until God activates it. So then, when we come to this man, Jacob, the long and the short of the story, he manages to get the birthright of his brother through a meal. Brother was like, I don't care. As long as you feed me, I'm hungry. Now, here's the difference between him and everybody else. He knew the value of the birthright. If you do not understand the value of what it means to be God's child, you'll always second guess yourself. So, he knew exactly what was in there, and he said, I want the birthright. And he said, sure, you can have it. He grabs it, and he smiled. He said, I know. But somebody else must have asked him, Esau, are you sure? Are you sure that you're no longer going to be mentioned in history? Because God himself ended up calling, say, I'm the God of who? Jacob. Are you sure you want to switch? Do you understand what you have? So he didn't understand what he has. He loses the birthright, long and short, and also the rest of the story about even how he went to get blessings from his father. And after that, his brother was angry. Brother was fuming. Brother said, I'm going to go get him. He runs. He goes away. You know, there's nothing worse than knowing that somebody more powerful than you is looking for you. So the long and short, I'm just going to skip to this. Then he finds himself preoccupied by one thing. My brother, he heard that his brother was coming to meet him when he was on his way. And they said he's got strong men with him. He's coming. You know, when people say he's coming, he's coming. No matter what, he got even more nervous than anything else. There's something so beautiful about pressure. Because you know, sometimes pressure will drive you to your knees. And when you're down on your knees, there's no other place to go. Because there's nothing lower than that. You need to now learn how to stand up from being on your knees. So what happens? When you go to verse 22 of Genesis 12, it says, during the night, Jacob arose, woke up his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and 11 sons, and had them cross the ford of the Jabbok River. He sent them across along with everything he had. And Jacob was left all alone. Left all alone. Please make note of that. Suddenly, I love the word suddenly. There's a whole thing about suddenly. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a man appeared and wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he was not winning the match, he struck Jacob's hip and knocked it out of joint, leaving it wrenched as he continued to wrestle with him. So we know what was happening there. But the thing I want to bring your focus on is that worshipers are the type of people who do not know what sleep is when it's time to fight. Because Jacob was wrestling through the night out of fear, because there was something so important that was about to happen. Worship will do wonders for you. Why? Because his name was Jacob. Esau was coming to get Jacob. Esau was coming to finish the deal with Jacob. He was coming to revenge, whether he was going to kill him or whatever he was going to do. But after wrestling throughout the day, throughout the evening, and then the question was, what is your name? And then he said, my name is Jacob. And so from now on, you're no longer called Jacob. Your name shall be called Israel. Now, what just happened there? Because when you worship, the devil who knows he was coming for Jacob, all of a sudden, the name was changed. Because when you change the name, you change the nature. When you change the nature, you alter the whole destiny of a person. Because your name is what is tied to your whole destiny. So the next thing he finds out that his name is no longer called Jacob. So Esau, who was coming for Jacob, met Israel. And when he met Israel, he couldn't kill that man. Why? Because the old man he was coming for had been changed through the night during the wrestling. So the time when you're laboring so hard, so you're crying, you do not know what to do, in your own place, when you are alone, God comes for a visit. And when God comes for a visit, you'll understand what worship is. David said, when you appear, I worship. So at the time when he was with God, God was busy changing in nature. Why? He was redirecting that to see, listen, death was coming for you. But now you're no longer going to die. You're going to live again. What will happen is, if your name before was called a deceiver, if your name before was called a thief, if your name before was called whatever people have called you, when you spend the night with God and wrestle and cry and call unto him and never stop until you feel a breakthrough coming, you'll find out that he will change your name, change your nature, and then divert the devil. He will never find you because he was going for the old man. Well, you can say the old man is left behind. I'm no longer Jacob, my name is Israel. And I'm about to change the course of nature. So what is so powerful about that is now we know the lineage of Jacob about wrestling alone. Now there comes a man called David. Now here's the connection. This is the connection. David, when he said, when I was reading on Samuel, 1 Samuel 17, verse 34. Now we know that there was a time where the Israelites were facing this big Goliath called, this big Goliath, who was a big man. You know what I found out about Goliath? Goliath was actually not even a fighter. He was a prop that was there to intimidate all of you. Because a fighter cannot be that sluggish and that big. A fighter has to be agile. So what happens when you bring out a big man? You intimidate those who are actually looking, and then after intimidation, what happens? You become very scared. We get so intimidated by big things. And so, there comes David, small young boy, good looking. He goes over, he says, who's this uncircumcised Philistine who thinks he can come for me? What was he doing? He was just drawing from the lineage of his father who had actually battled in the night. Now, David says something very important. Now, listen to this. This is really what excited me. But David said to Saul, that's verse 34, your servant was tending his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came out and took a lamb from the flock, I went after it and attacked it and rescued the lamb from his mouth. And when it rose up against me, I seized it by its whiskers and struck and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted and defiled the armies of the living God. David said, the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and may the Lord be with you. Here's the connection. David, when he was alone, he was not up there just twiddling his thumbs. He was in worship. So during worship, he had enough power. Listen, when he says a lion or a bear, let me help you understand, because I love wildlife. Lions that are where David was saying we're coming from, that are more like desert lions, are bigger than your normal lions. Long and short, a lion normally relies on camouflage. So they're always going to play, like when you go to Kruger National Park, you're going to find the lions over there. They are big lions, but there's nothing as bigger and stronger than the desert one, because that one doesn't have camouflage, but has developed more stamina and strength so that they can be able to run longer distances to catch their prey. So long and short, when he said the lion, where he was talking about a massive animal, and he didn't get any help. He said, I was alone when I struck that lion. Then after that, he said, a bear came out. I also struck the bear. Listen, your battles that are bigger than a bear and a lion come to you in private. If you can't win in private during that time, then you do have a big problem. So in private, it was time to wrestle. David didn't have a choice. He wrestled so hard, he fought in private, and the results came out when he let Goliath out. Why? Because God has given you the ability to fight more than you ever know that you can, because normally we never know what we have until we get set up by something that we do not know what to do with, and we've got no choice but to go down on our knees and call on the living God to say, I do not know how to deal with this situation, and now I need your help. So Israel was battling his demons, and he fought so hard, God changed him. Now David was battling with those that were trying to take his, you must know, as a shepherd, you are so passionate about your sheep that nothing must ever happen to your sheep. So because of that, he said, I was never scared of both. He said, I grabbed it by the whiskers. I do not know what that looked like. But all I know is that David said, I conquered my battles when no one was looking. In other words, it's not time to show off, to talk about what the power of God does to you. It's the time when in private, God gives you so much power that he helps you overcome what no one would ever just go up to a lion and just strike it alone. I don't care what size you are, but a lion is very, very tough. So your toughest battles can only be conquered by you being a worshiper. Now, let me tell you what I saw. When I was traveling, I went to Japan, and I noticed that every home I went to in Japan, they keep shrines inside the house. They have a little shrine. And I asked them, what is this for? I said, well, every now and then we come here and we bow to the shrine. Small shrines everywhere, some of them outside, everywhere, in big temples, everywhere, but every house has got a shrine. That shrine in the house becomes a focus of the family being able to do things together and to know that this is part of their tradition. Here's what I picked up from that. I said, oh, I so wish that some of us could actually have our homes be like a sanctuary that God uses. Now, I'm not asking you to build a shrine, but I'm just asking you to know that when we're here in this house, there's a certain room that's dedicated to the fact that when we are here, this is a room for prayer. This is a room for supplication. This is a room or a corner of the space where we say, when we're here, this is what it's all about. Because when you do not worship at home, do not expect to come here and start worshiping here. Because the problem that happens is that you end up finding even the praise team struggling to wind you. They have to wind you and give you hits so that you can come up, and then you come up and be the one who says, oh, today worship was good. You just mean you got entertained. You take your worship and you bring it to the church. You meet praise here, and then that when you praise meets, then you ignite a fire. Because there are so many times where people need to walk out of here healed because the worshipers brought that to the house. And I so remember, I went to another church, and I saw at the door on the way out there the big sign written, "You are now entering the service fields. Go and serve the Lord." I looked at that, I was like, wow, that is so unique. So now, because when we walk out of here, we are so empowered to go out there and make a difference. But worship doesn't start here. Worship starts at home. Because if you can worship at home, then we will never have a problem with some of you when you are here, you've just been going through other things at home. Gender-based violence is so big in our churches this day, it's unbelievable. And when you come here to say, praise the Lord, after you are out there because you're expecting the church to change you, you must come to be part of the participants of being here, because worship will make you a different person. Worship will change your nature. Worship will take you from being Jacob to becoming Israel. Worship will change you because it will take you as a small, well-known, little bitty of a boy, swing your baton, take a stone and strike the biggest man ever and got the whole nation to celebrate. Because now, what have you had? Worship is empowering. It will empower you. Now, worship is not about singing. It's not about singing, because a lot of you think, well, now I can't worship like that. It's not about singing. Worship is when, the summary for me of worship is a human response to God's awesome presence. Because when God appears, you've got no choice. Because you know what? And for those who like football, for an example, well, like me, one day I was seeing one of the footballers who was my favorite, because I'm not going to name his name just in case people are going to judge me, my choice of who I like, and even not come to church when I'm here. No, I'm kidding. When I saw him one day, they were giving him brand new boots, and he took the ball. Now, for those who have played football before, he took the ball, juggled it, the ball never touched the ground, and he was walking, and he goes to the poles outside of the penalty area, kicks the ball, hits the crossbar, comes back, again, he takes it, and then angles, hits the ball, crossbar a few times. He was just aiming for the crossbar. And then when he was done, he was juggling it, he brought it back. The ball only touched ground when he was sitting. Now, for all of us who love football, you know, we're like, oh, wow. So now, if ever I have an opportunity to one day see him, to be invited to say, come and sit with this man who's an international superstar, what happens when you see him? You're like, oh my goodness, can you believe what I saw? I can't believe what I saw. You get so wowed by what you see. So here's what happens. When one day you focus your attention to God Almighty, you'll see things where your mouth will never close. Now, we're talking about football, it's just small. But the awesomeness of the power of who God is will blow your mind. So why? Because when you even see that there are beings in heaven who just look up and then they fall on their faces before the Lord, they are not programmed. Every time they open their eyes, they see something else. They're like, oh my goodness, wow. They go down, they look up, they see something else. Why? Because God is inviting you to a place of worship. The harder the problems that are following you is a sign of knowing that God is wanting to bless you. Problems are there to distract you because the devil knows what's lying ahead, that there's something. He can smell that there's something. So praise will get you prepared for war, and then worship will take you to that other place. Because when you worship, there's something that happens that's so powerful about worship. It says that, when you worship, the angel of the Lord encamps around you, empowers you. So what does it mean? There's a sign outside. Do not disturb. Because when you're worshiping, you cannot be disturbed. Sometimes during praise, there are things that can distract you. But when you step from praise into a place of worship, when your eyes are closed and you say, Jesus, I'm here for you. Or you're down on your knees to say, Jesus, I need you. That's the time when all of angels come to encamp around you to say, listen, move away, devil. This is our time now. My child has spoken. Can you imagine the creator of the universe and all things unknown that you'll never even know silences everything when you speak? When you cry out to him, God will hear you. So what am I saying today? If we take the power of worship forward, then we can conquer all kinds of things. The devil will do any and everything to distract you from being a worshiper. So what I would ask you, is that you do the following. Take time to cordon off time for worship. If you can only have time, maybe you have a window. Let me say you've got 2 minutes. Can that 2 minutes be without anything that will distract you? Use the time and say, Lord, I'm giving you my undivided attention. Because Lord loves a worshiper. Because a worshiper speaks into the heart of who God is. And guess what? A lot of us here have got a nature that has got to change. Because some of us are filled with fear. Some of us are filled with doubts. Some of us have got all kinds of problems. There are lots of problems that we are facing. And the Lord is saying, I want to change your name so that I can change your nature. Because that's why I even tell people, stop calling your children. These days, they name children, they give them some of the craziest names ever that I've ever heard, And some other people give names, I would hear even about when we were growing up in the township, there would be a young boy who's known to be a little bit feisty. They call, this one. What is his name? This one is quite lighty. What are you doing with that? What are you putting into that boy's head? He starts also thinking now, I'm also now, I guess, quite lighty now. So all of a sudden, now everything that he does, he just believes that he's a hooligan. Because you've planted something in that person's head. So now we need to start planting the right names into people's heads. If your name was called Kwai, change it today. Find a name that's going to give glory to you, God. Because you need to change your name, change your nature, change the direction of what the devil was planning to get you for. And then when that has happened, you're going to give glory to God. Why? Because the Lord has changed your nature. So today, that's why, I always say that whenever people ask me, what's my name? I said, I'm so glad my parents were more like, they prayed before they gave names. They prayed. They said, we cannot give this one the name Sbusiso. And I was growing up in a township. Man, I tried to be the quietest child you can ever find. Listen, when you're a pastor's kid, there's nothing more unattractive than being called a pastor's kid. You're going to try and prove that you are the baddest guy on earth. And even when you're at a party, you try to dance, but you can't even dance like everybody else. You dance like a church guy. Why? Because you cannot change that what was put on you before you were born. When your parents called you by your name, that name is locked. So wherever you can go, they look at you, especially the elders used to look at me and say, no, don't worry about him. He's coming back home. So all of a sudden, I used to hear people just calling me Sbusiso, which means a blessing. I'll say, man, just call me Sbu. Just call me Sbu. Don't give me the whole name. But that name was arresting me. and reminding me of what my parents want to see out of me. So then, here's the most important thing. If you don't give time for worship, your engine of being able to function is suffering. So change your nature. Ask God to help you. Because if you can be a worshiper, let me tell you something. A bear will come and it will never do you any harm. And why? Look for things that are causing you to become a person who, now worship is born out of something else as well. There are certain things that you like the most. And when you start doing things that you like the most, for it says, for your heart will always pursue what you esteem as your treasure. That's Matthew 6 and verse 21. So there are certain things that end up setting up room in your hearts so that they can do as they want. Start to say, pray like David prayed, Lord, go through me. And should there be anything in me that is not of you, change it. So surrender yourself to God. Then God will take you and elevate you to a place that you've never, ever, ever, ever thought you could go to. So worship is so important. Please let's not have our team labor every day here, because sometimes we come here, we're so down, and then it's like, okay, let's give them that song. Try to, I've been up here sometimes, in different places where I can find that I'm trying to throw everything, and people are just like, today's not a good day. So your turn, yeah. So I want to say to you, worship at home. Bring that worship here. When you bring that worship into the church, you ignite the fire with the team that is here to praise the Lord. And that fire that goes out changes lives. We need to see people walking in here without touching them. They need to be delivered. We're going to see miracles that will happen here. People will walk in here and then go back home with a different nature. Why? Because Jesus is walking right behind them. So you are empowered when you worship. And when you worship, you become a better person. So may I challenge each and every one of you, make worship a priority. And when you give God his priority, he'll prioritize you as well. So may God bless each and every one of you today. And I want to challenge you, make it a point to pray for your children, to pray for the country, pray for those who do not know who God is. And people, let me say this, leave the government alone. Stop asking the government to help you achieve the purposes that God wants to achieve. The government has been made to function the way they do. They do what they do. You need to do what you do. And what you do best is to worship. When you worship, things will change. When you worship, everything will take the course of what the Lord has planned. Destiny lies in the heart of a worshiper. So may God bless you today.